My name is Sienna Cross. I'm 29 years old, and 18 months ago, my fiancé was arrested in the ER waiting room because of what he did to me over a plate of spaghetti. I'm finally ready to tell the whole story. That night started like any other long Wednesday. I remember the gray sky over the parking lot when I left work, the way the air smelled like rain and exhaust. I'd stayed late at the office, half from deadlines, half because the idea of going home to more wedding spreadsheets made my brain ache. When I walked into our apartment, the first thing I noticed was the music. Soft indie playlist, the one we usually put on during lazy Sunday mornings. The second thing was the smell. Tomatoes, garlic, something rich and warm. My fiancé, Ethan, 27M, stood at the stove, stirring a pot like some domestic ad. He looked up, flashed that practiced easy smile of his. "Hey, babe, perfect timing," he said. "Dinner's almost ready." Ethan is the kind of man who photographs well. Tall, dark hair, nice jawline, the kind of guy our friends called put together. When we got engaged 4 months ago, everyone said we were the perfect couple. I used to believe that. Now, when I think of him, I think of that smile over the saucepan and wonder how long he'd been planning. I dropped my bag by the door and toed off my shoes. "You cooked?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "I thought you had that late client meeting." He shrugged. "They canceled. Figured I'd make one of your favorites. Spaghetti with meat sauce. No takeout, no arguments." He smirked at that last part. Something about the way he said arguments hit a nerve. Most couples fight about money or chores. We fought about food, or more specifically, about the thing that could kill me. I walked over and peered into the pot. It looked normal. Red sauce simmering, flecks of herbs, steam fogging my glasses. "Smells good," I said. My voice sounded small, even to me. He leaned down and kissed my cheek, hands warm on my waist, for half a second too long, like he was playing the role of loving fiancé for an audience only he could see. "Go change," Ethan said. "I'll plate up. We can actually have a nice night for once." A nice night. I wanted that. God, I wanted that so badly that I pushed down the faint unease curling in my stomach, the same unease I'd felt at restaurants when he'd sigh as I asked servers to double-check ingredients, the same unease from that fight about our honeymoon destination when he'd thrown the word controlling at me like a knife. I told myself I was being paranoid, again. In our bedroom, I changed into leggings and an old college sweatshirt, the fabric soft from years of washing. I caught my reflection in the mirror, dark circles under my eyes, hair in a messy bun, engagement ring flashing on my finger. "Don't be dramatic," I muttered to myself. "It's spaghetti. He's made it a dozen times." I've had a severe peanut allergy since I was 6, not the little itchy kind. The throat swells shut, ambulance, shem, sirens, possibly doesn't come back, kind. My medical file is a thick stack of hospital records and test results. I carry an EpiPen like most people carry chapstick. Ethan knew all of that. I told him on our second date, casually but clearly. "If you ever want to murder me in a way that looks like an accident," I joked, "just hand me a peanut butter cookie." He'd laughed then, too, but it had been a different laugh. Warmer, less cruel. I shook off the chill creeping up my spine and headed back to the kitchen. The table was set when I came out. Plates, forks, a small candle flickering between us. The sauce was already ladled over the pasta, steam rising in lazy spirals. It looked like every cozy dinner scene in every rom-com ever. "Wow," I said, forcing a smile. "You went all out." "Trying to make up for being a horrible, unsupportive fiancé," Ethan said lightly. "Isn't that what you called me after the whole Thailand thing?" There it was, the fight he couldn't let go of. I sank into my chair. "I never said you were horrible," I replied. "I said you weren't taking my allergy seriously." He rolled his eyes, but in a practiced, playful way. "Relax, Sienna. It's a joke. Can we just eat without an argument?" I pressed my lips together. If I pushed, we'd spiral. If I didn't, I'd spend the whole meal waiting for the next jab. "Sure," I said finally. "Let's just eat." He passed me a plate. I looked down at it. Spaghetti, red sauce, ground beef, herbs. It looked safe. No crushed peanuts, no chopped nuts on top, nothing obvious. My brain automatically ran its usual checklist. Did I see him open a jar of peanut butter? No. Is there any reason peanuts would go in spaghetti? No. Have I eaten his cooking before without dying? Yes. I picked up my fork. The first bite was fine. Tomato, garlic, basil. A little sweeter than usual, but some brands of canned tomatoes are like that. The second bite, I noticed the texture. The sauce felt slightly thicker, like something creamy had been stirred in. My tongue tingled, just a little, a faint prickling across the back of my mouth. My heart rate ticked up. You're anxious, I told myself. You've been arguing about this for months. You're primed to panic. Across the table, Ethan watched me too closely for someone who claimed to want a peaceful night. His elbow rested on the table, his phone face down for once. His eyes didn't leave my face. You okay? He asked, voice casual. I swallowed. My throat felt normal, mostly. Maybe a little tight, but I'd been holding my breath without realizing. Yeah, I said. It's good, just a bit different. Did you change the recipe? Maybe I'm just getting better, he replied, smiling. Third bite's the charm, right? There was something in his tone I couldn't place. Challenge? Anticipation? My fork hovered over the plate. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to trust that the man I'd agreed to marry would never, ever gamble with my life. I took a third bite. The tingling hit harder this time, like static under my skin. My lips started to feel numb. I swallowed, and a sharp, unmistakable tightness grabbed at my throat, like invisible hands pressing inward. No. I set my fork down carefully. Ethan, I said slowly, what exactly did you put in the sauce? He didn't even glance at the pot. The usual, he said. Tomatoes, garlic, herbs, beef, a little sugar. My breathing sounded loud in my own ears. I swallowed again, testing. The tightness was worse. I felt that familiar, horrifying sensation, like my airway was shrinking by millimeters. This feels wrong, I said. Did you put anything new in here? Any kind of nut? He picked up his phone, thumb flicking across the screen. Babe, we've eaten this a dozen times, he said. You're fine. Don't start. Panic began to crawl up my spine, fast and cold. I pushed back my chair, stood up too quickly, the room tilting for a second. I'm getting my EpiPen, I said, already moving toward the hallway where my bag was. Behind me, I heard him huff a laugh. Not nervous, not confused, amused. Seriously? Ethan called after me. Over spaghetti? My hands shook as I yanked open my bag and felt for the familiar plastic case. My throat was definitely swelling now. Each breath had a faint rasp to it, a whistle of air through narrowing space. Sienna, he said, closer now. I turned, EpiPen in my fist. He was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me like I was the punchline to a joke only he understood. You're really going to stab yourself in the leg over dinner? He asked. I tried to answer, but my voice came out strangled, thinner than it should have been. Something's wrong, I managed. Tell me what you put in the sauce. He tilted his head. A slow, almost delighted smile spread across his face. I told you, he said softly. Just the usual. My vision shimmered at the edges. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. The EpiPen felt heavy in my hand. Ethan, I choked. Did you put peanuts in it? He watched me struggle for a beat too long. Then he laughed. Not kindly, not nervously, a sharp cutting sound. I put peanut butter in the sauce, he said, like he was finally revealing the twist ending of a story. Just a spoonful, to prove you're faking, to prove you're just picky. For a second, the world went very, very quiet. No music, no hum of the fridge, no cars outside, just his words and the roar of my pulse. My fingers closed tighter around the EpiPen. And for the first time since I was 6 years old, I realized I might actually die because someone I loved decided they didn't believe me. When Ethan admitted what he'd done, time fractured. One piece of me was in that hallway, throat closing, fingers locked around an EpiPen. Another piece was 6 years old again, on a sticky birthday party floor, staring up at fluorescent lights while adults screamed my name. If you want to understand how I ended up engaged to a man who would test my allergy like it was a personality quiz, we have to go back. I was diagnosed with a peanut allergy when I was 6. It was a princess-themed birthday party. Someone's mom had made cupcakes with little plastic tiaras and a special tray of peanut butter cookies. I remember the smell, warm and nutty, and my own happy greediness as I grabbed one. I remember taking a bite. I remember the burn, not like spicy food, like my mouth had swallowed fire and it was racing down my throat. I remember my tongue going thick, my chest tightening, the way the room seemed to tilt sideways. Then there were adults yelling, someone crying, the host's mom frantically calling 911, a paramedic's face leaning over me as I wheezed, the first stab of epinephrine into my tiny thigh. After that, my life shifted. No more just a taste. No more grabbing random snacks. I learned to read labels before I learned long division. My mom carried my EpiPen at first, Later, I carried it myself, along with a card that listed my allergy in all caps. Peanuts ix anaphylaxis. By the time I was a teenager, the allergy was just part of me, like being nearsighted or hating group projects. Friends knew, teachers knew, restaurants, camp counselors, roommates, everyone got the speech. Most people were kind, some were clueless, a few rolled their eyes, but no one ever tested it. Not until Ethan. I met him at a mutual friend's rooftop birthday party. Irony not lost on me. It was one of those late summer evenings where the sky looks painted on, the city humming softly below. I was hiding near the food table, mentally cataloging what I could safely eat, when a voice behind me said, "Checking for allergens or plotting the cleanest route to the cheese?" I turned. Ethan stood there in a navy button-down, sleeves rolled up just enough to show tanned forearms. He had that easy confidence of someone who spends a lot of time talking in conference rooms. "Allergy," I said. "Death by charcuterie would be a little dramatic, even for me." His eyebrows lifted. "Serious?" "Peanuts, Fiancé," I replied. At that point, the explanation came out on autopilot. Anaphylaxis, hospital, EpiPen, all the fun stuff. "If you ever want to knock me off, a spoon of peanut butter will do it." He winced. "Yikes. Okay, mental note, never bring you Reese's." He didn't make a joke about fake allergies or everyone's gluten-free now. He just nodded and asked me which dishes were safe so he could eat the same ones to keep me company. It felt considerate, unusual in a good way. We talked for hours that night. About work. He was in finance. I was in marketing. About siblings, terrible exes, dream vacations. When he walked me to my car, he said, "Text me when you're home, so I know you didn't die from cross-contamination." I laughed and did exactly that. The first year together was good. We tried new restaurants, but he always checked with me or the staff first. He memorized my order at the cafe near my office. He even bought a bright red case for my EpiPen and called it your tiny lifesaver lightsaber. When I had a mild reaction at a restaurant 3 months before everything blew up, a sauce they'd promised was safe but clearly wasn't, Ethan was the one who shoved chairs aside so I could lie down, handed my EpiPen to the EMT, argued with the manager while I was transported. "You scared the hell out of me," he said afterward at the hospital, his face pale. "I thought I was going to lose you over a stupid sauce." I believed him. Maybe that's why, when things started to shift, I kept telling myself I was imagining it. It began as small comments, little sighs. We'd be at dinner, and I'd ask the server, "Hey, sorry, can you confirm there's no peanuts or peanut oil in this?" Ethan would exhale just slightly, like the air was being let out of a balloon. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I did. One night, we were out with his coworkers at this trendy fusion place. The menu was a minefield of Thai-inspired this and sauté-style that. I asked the server my usual questions. When the waiter left, one of Ethan's coworkers chuckled. "Wow, high maintenance much?" Ethan laughed. He didn't say, "She has a life-threatening allergy." He didn't say, "Back off." He just laughed and said, "You get used to it." It was a tiny moment. Tiny enough that I swallowed my hurt and told myself I was being sensitive. But tiny moments add up. 6 months before the spaghetti, we had dinner at his parents' house. His mom had gone all out. Dishes lined the counter, fragrant and colorful. "We did Thai," she said proudly. "Ethan said you liked Thai." My stomach dropped. Thai food is notorious for peanuts. Every sauce, every garnish, every hidden spoonful of crushed nuts sprinkled like confetti. I smiled, polite but tight. "Thank you so much for cooking," I said. "Do you know if any of the sauces have peanuts or peanut oil? I have a severe allergy." Before his mom could answer, Ethan jumped in. "She's just paranoid about food," he said with an indulgent roll of his eyes. "She always does this." The word paranoid hit me like a slap. His mom frowned at him, then turned back to me. "You have an actual allergy?" she asked. "Yes," I said firmly. "Since I was 6, I can't even have trace amounts." "Oh my God, I'm so glad you said something," she said, genuinely horrified. "This peanut sauce definitely isn't safe. Let me check the others." She walked me through each dish, reading ingredient labels, setting aside a plate with plain rice and vegetables she could guarantee were safe. She was kind. Ethan was not. On the drive home, he exploded. "You embarrassed me in front of my family," he snapped, hands clenched on the steering wheel. "Do you have any idea how that looked? My mom spent all day cooking, and you basically told her she almost poisoned you." "She did almost poison me," I said quietly. "By accident. That's why I asked. I was polite. You made me look bad." "That's what you care about?" My voice shook. "Not that I could literally die. But that you looked bad? He scoffed. God, you're so dramatic. People eat peanuts all the time. You act like they're arsenic. They are for me, I said. That's how allergies work. We fought most of the way home. Eventually, he apologized, said he'd been stressed about work, that he hadn't meant it like that. I accepted it. I always did. After that, the comments didn't stop. They sharpened. At restaurants, he'd order dishes swimming in peanut sauce and then sulk when I refused to just try a bite. You make everything about your allergy, he muttered once, pushing his plate away. It's exhausting. His friends picked up on his attitude like it was contagious. At a party, one of them joked, "Don't worry, guys, we're all going to die from fun. Sienna just might die from the snack table first." Everyone laughed, including Ethan. I was starting to feel like the villain in my own medical history, like my body's tendency to go into shock was a character flaw. 2 months before everything, he came home with takeout. "Surprise," he said cheerfully, holding up a bag. "Pad Thai from that place you like." My heart sank. "Ethan, I can't eat pad Thai. It literally has peanuts in it." He pulled out the container, waved it. "Babe, it's not like they dump a jar in there. It's trace amounts. You'll be fine." "Trace amounts won't be fine," I snapped. "That's the whole point. That's why I ask a million questions. I can't risk—" "You're being ridiculous," he said, irritation flashing across his face. "You use this allergy as an excuse to be picky. Just admit you don't want to eat what other people eat." I watched him sit down and shovel the noodles into his mouth, crunchy peanuts and all, while I made myself a sandwich. That should have been the moment I left. That should have been my big red flag. But we'd already sent save the dates. Deposits were paid. Our parents were involved. Walking away felt like detonating a bomb right in the middle of both families. So I told myself it was just ignorance, immaturity, that he'd grow out of it. I told myself a lot of things I wish I hadn't. A week before the spaghetti, we were lying in bed, laptops open, pretending to plan our honeymoon. "What about Thailand?" Ethan said, eyes lighting up as he clicked through photos. "Beaches, nightlife, cheap food. Looks incredible." I hesitated. "Thai food is heavy on peanuts. Street food especially. It would be risky." He snapped his laptop shut. "There it is," he said bitterly. "You ruining everything with your allergy again." I stared at him. "I am not ruining anything. I am trying not to die on our honeymoon." "You're using it to control where we go," he said. "My sister said this is a thing. People convince themselves they have allergies when it's really anxiety. Adult onset stuff, psychosomatic." I laughed, disbelieving. "I've had this allergy since I was 6, Ethan. There are hospital records, ER visits, tests. This isn't new. This isn't anxiety." He shook his head. "Real allergies don't dominate your whole personality like this. You make a bigger deal out of it than anyone I've ever met." The phrase real allergies lodged in my chest like shrapnel. We had one of the worst fights of our relationship that night. I told him if he couldn't take my allergies seriously, we had a problem. He told me I was paranoid, controlling, that I made him feel like the bad guy just for wanting a normal life. The next day, he apologized, said he'd talk to his sister and maybe she'd put ideas in his head, that he understood now that anxiety and allergies could coexist, but that mine was obviously documented. He said obviously, like it was a revelation. "I believe you," he said, taking my hands. "I'm sorry, I was being an ass. We'll find a different honeymoon spot. Somewhere safe, okay?" He looked sincere. Maybe he even was in that moment. I wanted so badly to believe him that I ignored the voice in my head whispering that someone who truly believed you were one spoonful away from death wouldn't keep trying to argue you into eating it. I looked at our calendar, the engagement photos on the fridge, the venue confirmation email on my phone. "Okay," I told him, "we'll figure it out." I thought the worst of it was over. I thought our biggest fight would be about a honeymoon we never booked. A week later, I was standing in our hallway, throat closing, EpiPen in my hand, listening to the man who claimed to love me laugh as he admitted he'd fed me peanut butter to prove I was faking. The EpiPen clicked against my palm. That tiny, familiar sound of plastic on plastic. And my body responded before my mind did. Muscle memory. Terror memory. My thumb found the safety cap. My grip tightened. Behind me, Ethan leaned in the doorway like he was watching a mildly entertaining TV show. "You're actually doing it," he said, voice tinged with fascination. "You're seriously going to stab yourself over pasta." The hallway seemed to narrow. My vision pulsed at the edges, breathing short and ragged. Every swallow scraped like sandpaper. My voice barely escaped. "You put peanuts? Why?" He shrugged. To prove you're exaggerating. To prove you're not really allergic. Then he smirked. Guess we're about to find out. Something inside me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet internal break, like a hairline fracture finally giving in. I pulled the safety cap off the EpiPen. Do it then, Ethan said softly. Let's see. I drove the pen into my thigh. Pain. Pressure. Then the familiar flood, adrenaline surging like a fire hose. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. For a moment, I could breathe a little better. Not a lot. Not enough. Never enough. But the smallest opening in my throat felt like a miracle. Still, I needed help. I needed a hospital. I needed someone who didn't think my medical condition was a personality flaw. I staggered towards the kitchen to grab my phone. Ethan followed, steps slow and deliberate. Sienna, seriously, he scoffed. You're fine. This is exactly what I've been saying. You're anxious, not allergic. I fumbled with my phone, hands trembling. The number swam, 911. It rang once, then someone answered. 911, what's your emergency? I could barely get the words out. Anna. Anaphylaxis. Peanut. Allergic. What's your address, ma'am? I managed to choke out the numbers and street. My chest tightened further. My breaths grew sharp, shallow. Every inhale felt like pulling air through a straw. Help is on the way, the dispatcher said. Stay on the line if you can. Use your EpiPen if you haven't yet. I didn't have enough breath to speak. I couldn't hold the phone to my ear. I let it slip onto the counter, still connected. Ethan's voice cut in, frantic now, but wrong frantic. Frantic about himself. What are you doing? He snapped. You called 911. Are you serious right now? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Each breath was a battle, a rasping drag of air through swelling tissue. He waved a hand in my face, pacing now. Hang up. Tell them you're fine. I'm not dealing with this. You're overreacting, Sienna. You're making this bigger than it is. I reached for the drawer by the sink. Not for a weapon. For a Ziploc bag. Ethan froze. What are you doing with that? I scooped a portion of the spaghetti into it. The sauce clung thick and sticky to the inside of the plastic. I sealed it with shaking fingers. Evidence, I rasped, barely audible. His expression flickered. Confusion, then fear, then a cold anger. The distant wail of sirens rose, getting closer. Ethan backed up, shaking his head. This is ridiculous, he said, voice rising. You're fine. When the paramedics get here, just tell them it was a panic attack. Don't you dare tell them I did anything. My throat clamped tighter. Panic clawed up my spine. I was seconds away from passing out. He stepped toward me. I stepped back, or tried to. My legs buckled. I braced myself against the counter, the Ziploc bag clutched to my chest. The front door burst open. Paramedics, a voice shouted. Ethan spun around. She's anxious, he blurted. She does this. But the paramedics took one look at me. My red face, swollen throat, wheezing breaths, the used EpiPen on the counter, and shoved him aside. Severe anaphylaxis, one said. Let's move. Ma'am, can you hear me? I nodded weakly. They slapped an oxygen mask over my nose and mouth. Cool air hissed, blessing my lungs. She needs epinephrine, IV fluids, steroids, one paramedic said to the other. No time to waste. Ethan hovered behind them, voice shrill. I told her she was fine. She's exaggerating. Tell them you're fine, Sienna. The older paramedic shot him a look of pure disgust. Sir, step back, he ordered. Ethan bristled. I live here. I said step back. I held up the Ziploc bag, my hand barely steady. Peanuts, in sauce. I gasped through the mask. He fed me. Both paramedics froze for a fraction of a second, eyes flicking from me to the bag. Then one of them carefully took it from my hand. We're taking this, he said. Ethan lunged, panicked. That's our dinner. You can't take... The paramedic stepped between us, solid as a wall. Sir, stop. Step away from her. Now. Ethan hovered, helpless, trapped between rage and fear. They loaded me onto the stretcher, oxygen hissing, IV needle sliding into my arm. My throat burned as the swelling slowly, painfully, loosened its grip. The world blurred as they wheeled me toward the door. Ethan followed, his voice cracking. Sienna, tell them you're okay. Tell them you're fine. I weakly lifted a hand, not to reach for him, to wave him off. The paramedic shut the ambulance doors in his face. Inside, the world became a mix of flashing monitors, oxygen, the sting of a second injection, the paramedic's calm voice. You're going to be okay, he said gently. We'll get you stabilized. I nodded barely. The paramedic holding the evidence bag looked at me, his expression serious. Ma'am, did he know you're allergic? Did he knowingly give you peanuts? A bead of sweat rolled down my forehead. My breath rattled. I nodded. His jaw tightened. Do you want the police to meet us at the hospital? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I whispered. And then everything went dark. The world returned in pieces. A fluorescent ceiling blurring overhead, the steady beep of a heart monitor, a plastic oxygen mask pressed to my face. Voices, low, urgent, overlapping. Throat still swollen. Starting steroids. Lucky she used the EpiPen when she did. I blinked until the room came into focus, the ER. I was alive. Barely, but alive. A nurse with soft eyes and a tight ponytail leaned over me. Sienna, can you hear me? I nodded weakly. My throat throbbed with every breath. You're safe now, she said. We're monitoring your airway. The swelling is going down. I wanted to say thank you. Nothing came out but a rasp. And then everything rushed back. The Ziploc bag in the ambulance. Ethan's laughter. His voice yelling as the ambulance doors shut. My heart rate spiked. Easy, the nurse soothed. You're okay. You're safe from him. Safe from him. Someone else had to say it before I allowed the words to settle in my bones. About 40 minutes later, or maybe 10, or maybe an hour, time was strange in hospitals, 2 police officers walked in. One was a young man with a shaved head. The other was an older woman with the kind of expression that said she'd seen too much to be shocked by anything anymore. The woman stepped forward. Ms. Cross, I'm Officer Delaney. This is Officer Ruiz. We're here because the paramedics reported a possible intentional poisoning. Hearing it put that plainly made tears prick my eyes. I nodded, adjusting the oxygen mask. Can you tell us what happened? Delaney asked gently. My voice was barely a whisper. My fiancé put peanut butter in the sauce. He knew I'm allergic. Knowingly, she pressed. You've told him before. Yes. My throat constricted again, but not from the allergy this time. He admitted it. He laughed. The officers exchanged a look. Do you have any proof? Officer Ruiz asked. I pointed weakly toward where my used EpiPen lay on the bedside table. EMS must have placed it there. And to the plastic bag being held by a nurse, labeled and sealed. Delaney nodded. Paramedics already handed the sample to us. We'll send it to the lab. She paused. But I'll be honest with you. It smells like peanut butter, and your condition confirms exposure. That's enough for probable cause. My breath trembled. Where is he? He followed the ambulance to the ER, Delaney said, voice tightening. He tried to come back to the treatment area. I froze. He's here? Was, she corrected. He kept demanding to see you. When we told him he needed to wait, he got agitated. Ruiz added, when we informed him we were investigating, he became combative. He's in the waiting room right now. We're about to bring him in for questioning. I felt sick. Delaney put a hand on the rail of my bed. We're also prepared to arrest him if your statement confirms intent, which it does. Before I could respond, her radio crackled. Delaney Ruiz. Suspect is attempting to enter the patient area. Ruiz swore under his breath. Delaney clicked her radio. We're coming. And then I heard it. His voice. Muffled but unmistakable. I have a right to see her. She's my fiancé. You can't keep me out. She's making this up. A surge of panic shot through me. The officers moved fast. Stay here, Delaney said. You're safe. We'll handle him. They stepped out of the room. And the waiting room erupted. Through the half-open door, I heard the confrontation. Ethan, you don't understand. She's dramatic. She does this. This whole thing is blown out of... Officer, sir, you're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. Ethan, assault? Are you kidding me? Get off. Another officer, put your hands behind your back. Ethan, Sienna, tell them. Tell them it was an accident. Tell them you're fine. There was a scuffle, angry footsteps, metal clinking. Then a voice reciting Miranda rights. His shouting grew more distant. And then, nothing. Just the hum of medical machines and the low drip of IV fluid. A nurse closed my door gently. He's gone, she said softly. Gone. The word hit me like a weight dropped onto my chest. Not relief. Not yet. Something more raw, more complicated. But he was no longer in the same building. No longer standing over me, telling me I was wrong about my own body. I closed my eyes, trembling. After they moved me to a quieter room, my phone buzzed on the table. I reached for it slowly. 15 missed calls from Ethan. 32 new texts. The first few were panicked. Are you okay? Please answer. I'm sorry. Then defensive. This is an overreaction. I barely put any in. You're fine. Just anxious. Then angry. You're making me look crazy. My sister was right about you. You're using this to control me. Then fearful. Don't tell anyone. We can fix this. Please don't involve the police. I set the phone down. Hard. It buzzed again. His mom, I answered, still groggy, because I didn't know better yet. Is this Sienna? An older woman demanded. Yes, I whispered. What did you do to my son? My blood froze. He poisoned me. Oh, don't be dramatic, she snapped. He said it was an accident, a misunderstanding. You're blowing this way out of proportion. You know he struggles with stress. My vision blurred with disbelief. He put peanut butter in my food, I said. Intentionally. She scoffed. People make mistakes. This is your fiancé. Why would you try to ruin his life? I hung up. Blocked her. The phone rang again immediately. His sister. I blocked her too. Another call. His father. Blocked. A group text from Ethan's friends. You're unbelievable. You're ruining his future. All because you're picky and dramatic. Blocked. 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 Silence finally. It felt like sinking into cold water. Shocking. Still. But quiet. Officer Delaney returned an hour later. She carried paperwork, my formal statement, info about court, victim support contacts. She sat beside my bed. He's in custody, she said. He'll be processed out tonight. Bail hearing in the morning. My throat tightened. Will he be released? Possibly, she admitted. But if you request a protective order, he won't be allowed to contact you or come near you. Not even through a third party. The idea of him anywhere near me made my stomach twist. Yes, I croaked. I want that. We'll file it immediately. She hesitated before adding quietly, You did the right thing, Sienna. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a fight. It was assault. I nodded slowly. Somewhere deep inside, a truth I'd been refusing to face finally settled. He wasn't just inconsiderate. He wasn't just dismissive. He wasn't just stressed. He was dangerous. The next morning, the doctor cleared me to leave. My throat still felt raw, but I could breathe normally. My brother Daniel was already waiting in the hospital lobby, eyes wide, jaw tight. The moment he saw me, he rushed over and wrapped me in a hug so fierce I finally cried. Not the quiet movie-style tears. Ugly, shaking sobs that had been trapped inside me for 2 years. I'm here, Daniel murmured. I'm not going anywhere. We drove to his apartment. He made tea I could barely swallow. Told me he'd help me get my things from mine and Ethan's place. We'll go today, he said. Me, you, Dad, and 2 of Dad's buddies. Sheer manpower, just in case Ethan tries anything. I nodded, exhausted. But when we got there, Ethan wasn't the problem. The apartment was. The moment Daniel unlocked the door, I knew. Smashed plates, shredded clothes, photos ripped from frames, drawers overturned. My makeup smeared across the bathroom mirror like fingerprints of anger. My chest tightened, not from anaphylaxis this time, from violation. He did this, Daniel whispered. I didn't answer. I already knew. We packed everything salvageable into boxes. His things we left untouched. My engagement ring I dropped into a kitchen drawer without ceremony. My dad found my favorite mug smashed. Daniel found my laptop face down on the floor. I found my medical documents torn in half. 3 hours later, we closed the door behind us. I left my key on the counter. That night, after filing the protective order, moving my things, blocking dozens of numbers, and falling into my brother's guest bed, I lay staring at the ceiling. My throat still ached, my chest still hurt, but I was breathing. Breathing in a place where no one doubted that breathing mattered. I wish I could tell you everything got easier after I left the apartment, that breathing clean air, instead of Ethan's constant skepticism, fixed something inside me. But real life isn't that neat. Healing rarely is. The first 2 weeks after the incident were a blur of paperwork, police calls, medical visits, and sleeping on my brother Daniel's couch because the idea of sleeping in a room alone made my chest tighten. Every morning, my phone buzzed with news from someone in Ethan's orbit, not because Ethan contacted me, the protective order blocked that, but because his family and friends were relentless. His mom left voicemails dripping with contempt. His sister sent furious texts from different numbers. His friends posted thinly veiled messages online. People ruin lives over misunderstandings. Some girls weaponize victimhood. Simple mistake, ruined future. I didn't respond. I didn't read most of it. Daniel filtered everything he could. But hatred has a way of seeping through the cracks, no matter how many locks you put on the door. The wedding vendors called one by one. The venue coordinator's voice was brittle when she asked, "Do you need to delay your event?" When I told her to cancel outright, she hesitated. "I'm so sorry, Sienna. May I ask why?" I paused, breath shaky but steady. "My fiancé is in jail. He tried to poison me." Silence. A long one. Then, "We'll refund everything. The full deposit. It's the right thing to do." The caterer, photographer, florist, same reaction. Shock, sympathy, refunds, whispered kindness, no questions pressed. Word travels fast in vendor circles. I guess nobody wants their business associated with attempted murder. I returned to work 3 weeks later. My boss didn't ask for details. She just said, "Take things at your pace," and placed a box of herbal tea on my desk. Coworkers offered tight smiles, warm hugs, quiet support. Nobody treated me like a ticking bomb. Nobody rolled their eyes when I double-checked snacks in the break room. Most didn't even mention what happened. They just treated me like a human instead of a burden. It was more healing than I expected. Meanwhile, Ethan's case moved forward. During the preliminary hearing, I sat at the witness table, palms sweating, heart hammering, and told the judge everything. The jokes, the pad thai incident, the Thai dinner at his parents', the honeymoon fight, the spoonful of peanut butter he added to test me, his laughter while I choked. Ethan sat across the room, hair neatly combed, wearing a suit that didn't fit quite right anymore. He didn't look at me, not once. His lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding, that Ethan didn't know how severe the allergy was, that he made a mistake. The prosecutor held up the food sample analysis. Peanut proteins, extremely high concentration, likely more than a spoonful. Then the prosecutor read Ethan's text messages aloud, the ones calling me dramatic, paranoid, manipulative. They showed the court my medical records, hospital visits dating back 23 years. There was no misunderstanding. The judge ruled there was enough evidence for trial. Daniel was waiting for me outside the courthouse afterward. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "How'd it go?" he asked. I let out a slow breath. "He's going to trial." "Good." We walked to the car in silence, the autumn air cold, the leaves crunching under our feet. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I felt tired, bone-deep tired, the kind that seeps into you and stays. The trial took 4 months to begin. Delays, paperwork, motions, witness lists, endless meetings with the DA. I attended every hearing except one, the day they debated whether the peanut butter constituted a deadly weapon. It did. When the actual trial began, I expected it to feel cinematic. Dramatic speeches, gasps from the audience. But real court isn't like movies. It's quieter, colder, more clinical. The prosecution laid out facts like stepping stones. My documented medical history, Ethan's knowledge of my allergy, the food sample lab results, the EpiPen and EMT testimony, the hospital records, Ethan's statements at the ER, his text dismissing my allergy. One EMT testified that if I had waited another couple of minutes, I might have lost consciousness, possibly worse. The defense tried to paint me as controlling, anxious, overdramatic. They called Ethan's sister, who insisted I played up the allergy for attention. The jury didn't buy it. My medical file was thicker than a phone book. On the second day, I took the stand. My hands shook the entire time. The prosecutor asked gently, "Sienna, what do you remember most clearly about that night?" I swallowed. "His laugh," I said. The way he laughed while my throat was closing. The courtroom went still. Ethan stared at the table. 3 hours later, the jury delivered the verdict. Guilty, assault with a deadly weapon. His family wailed in the back row. His mother cried into a tissue. His sister glared daggers at me. His father shook his head like I'd done something unforgivable. I walked out without looking back. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. Ethan stood, pale and shaking, in front of the judge. The judge spoke slowly, words echoing in the room. "You intentionally exposed your fiancé to a life-threatening allergen. This was not a mistake, nor an accident. It was deliberate, reckless, and cruel." Then he delivered the sentence. 3 years, with eligibility for release in 18 months. Plus mandatory anger management and allergy education, plus probation, plus permanent protective order. Permanent. He would never be allowed near me again. That was 18 months ago. Ethan got out last month. I haven't heard from him. His family still posts things sometimes. Vague, self-pitying messages about betrayal and false accusations. But they blocked me long ago, and Daniel filters anything that slips through. I don't check, I don't need to. They can have their story. The one where I ruined a bright young man's life with my overreaction. I know the truth. The courts know the truth. My lungs know the truth every time I take a breath that's free and full and unhindered. And some nights, when I sit in silence with a cup of tea and feel the simple rise and fall of my chest, I remember what almost happened. I remember his laughter. But I remember my survival more. I'm alive.